Team podcast, where we talk about the logic behind virality. How are you, Amanda?
Good. I'm so excited for today. We have some really good topics.
I think they're actually really good too. And I feel like we finally got into the flow of what we're talking about, how we're talking about it, and there's been some pretty cool ones in the news this week. How about I just get started? Let's start with millennial nostalgia and temporal landmarks for Star Wars Episode 3. So movies are back, baby. This last week, we saw the Star Wars Episode 3 re-release for the 20th anniversary. It crushed box office expectations with 42.2 million global opening weekend and then 25.2 domestic. So it puts it on top of one of the most successful theatrical re-releases after A New Hope, another Star Wars property, The Lion King, which I don't remember seeing that one come out. But we've also seen Titanic, Coraline, Pride and Prejudice, The Matrix. Do all these movies kind of make sense for why it's millennial nostalgia taking over?
Wait, did you say that you went out and saw it?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I really wish I did, but I didn't. But from the ones that have been re-released, The Matrix was amazing. We saw it in IMAX, so that was pretty cool. I had wanted to see Pride and Prejudice, but didn't get to see that. And then Episode 1 also got re-released. They skipped over Episode 2 for some reason.
Which one's Episode 2? Why am I
Attack of the Clones.
Oh, because that one's terrible.
But you know.
No, I mean, to your point. I mean, I guess it could have still been a moment, but
right,
not
exactly.
the kind of moment that Lucasfilm would like.
Yeah, you know, but keep it, you know, clean.
I did rewatch Revenge of the Sith a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, I think maybe I watched it in the recent 4 to 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. So I think people are starting to consider it to be actually one of the good Star Wars movies, which is funny because I remember at the time it got pilloried, you know, pretty badly because people are like, the plot doesn't make sense. Obviously the Natalie Portman, you know, dying during childbirth for no reason other than you know, being depressed or whatever, doesn't make sense. But I think the rest of it in the context of where we are now and seeing that turn to evil, plus all the other properties that have come out to kind of supplement Anakin's storyline are making sense. But it's also, I think, part of why this topic is resonating so much with me today is millennial nostalgia is here and it is taking over. It is one of the most powerful marketing forces out there right now. I think with this one, it came out in 2005, so the core audience was probably 10 to 15 years old. I was, I think 18, and I went to go see it. So those kids, and us, were now in our 30s. We're starting to have more money. We're able to spend that money.
We can afford our IMAX tickets.
Exactly, those $20 movie tickets. You just purchase them.
Yeah, when you said you saw The Matrix in IMAX, then that kind of clicked for me, where I thought oh yeah, if I were a big fan, or if I don't know, there's a version of me that would pay to watch Revenge of the Sith in IMAX today. If there's a version
I just, I would have done, but I have 2 kids under 3, so it's just hard to get away. But yeah, so obviously a lot of other millennials went to go watch it. I think nostalgia really hits for people in our demographic, or they have kids that they can now share those movies with them. They're the ones that probably have that good feeling the way that the boomers had it for, the original Star Wars. And then you're seeing it a lot more on social media because, we grew up with social media. We share that we're going to go see it. So it just became this self-perpetuating cycle that people saw the post, so then they want to go see it. And it just kind of grew through word of mouth. And then obviously Star Wars property being so popular, we're the first ones that had the movies on VHS or DVDs. And so we're uniquely positioned to care about the re-releases coming out. And it's not just Star Wars, right? I also mentioned, those other re-releases, but we're also seeing it in other products. Pokemon just hit 8.9 billion in revenue in 2024, which is crazy. Nintendo's crushing it with the Switch, which is mainly selling.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt.
No, go please.
It's top of mind for me too because they just released released pre-orders for the Switch 2.
Yeah,
last week or 2 weeks ago. It was
Yeah.
sold out before it went on sale. Like,
Yeah.
those were nuts. You're right. There's something about the millennial nostalgia.
Yeah. We've also
Yeah.
seen the Power Rangers, the 30th anniversary line came out. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out. Tamagotchis were back as well. So I think the key thing here is that millennials now control about $2.5 trillion in annual spending power in North America alone. So companies are realizing that they can tap into this childhood nostalgia and the adult wallet combo, and they're going to be successful. It just has to be something that people want to see or that they remember fondly. So that's one thing that we're also seeing here is the temporal landmark, which is basically choosing marketing releases around strategic timing. So here it's like anniversaries, right? Or so I think one thing that, you know, companies can take from that is like, are there specific anniversaries or dates that you can kind of use as milestones to motivate people to buy your stuff? It creates artificial scarcity. It's only happening right now. It triggers the nostalgia. It gives people a reason to care about your product or service right now as opposed to later. And it provides built-in marketing narratives that, you know, you can tell based on when it originally came out. Is there things that like you can, you know, touch on to have people kind of connect to it a little bit more? In this case, 20 years is like super big, you know? So it makes people think like, wow, it's been that long. And it just kind of takes you back to like, you know, high school and like middle school, you know, when people presumably enjoyed their time. So they kind of want to experience it again. And it also ties it to like, being able to share it with your kids. Like your kids might be at the age where they can finally experience it along with you. So going to the theaters can be more of an experience as opposed to watching the movie at home on a random Tuesday. We're also seeing this come out with special editions. I think one of the things that for me, I've seen a lot and that like actually, you know, gets me spending is like when we see re-releases of classic books. Like they'll update book covers to kind of be more with the times, or kind of make the special editions like have very like intricate book covers. Like one of the ones that I just bought was the Hunger Games illustrated version, which is really cool because it's like you get to read the book, but then you also see all the new illustrations. So it's a really nice way to kind of update the stories. And obviously with Hunger Games, they just had the release of Sunrise at the Reaping. So they're able to tie it in with like a current release and then something that like people remember from the 2000s, early 2010s. Is that something that's like catches you were talking about Nintendo?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I would say, like, I'm a casual Star Wars fan, casual Nintendo fan, so I think these things are kind of fun. I mean, I don't really go out for movies anymore because I also have two small kids, and, like, going out to a movie theater isn't a priority for me unless I can take my older kid with me, and he's still a little bit too young for Star Wars. But I guess, like, one thing was when we were, you know, when I knew we were going to talk about this topic, I did look up, like, who's actually buying these tickets. Like, oh, one thing I thought was, like, is it actually millennials who are buying tickets to the movie theaters? And it is, right? It's millennials, and it's also the older Gen Zers, which I thought was pretty interesting. I mean, still in line with it, like, they were probably, like, you know, kindergartners or preschoolers when it came out.
Yeah.
Maybe they were like kindergarten-ish when like the DVDs came out, which still could be nostalgic for them. Or they had older siblings who are millennials, right? Who were really into Star Wars. So
yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, and I also just think, like, you know, with the current state of the world, I think the nostalgia piece, sentimentality, I think it resonates for a lot of people more than ever.
Yeah, I think on that topic as well, something that could be another reason why Revenge of the Sith in particular is standing out is just that turn from like good to like evil. And I wonder if right now people are like, oh shit, like are the vibes, you know, current.
The vibes are like, wait, we were Anakin?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I've seen some, you know, pushback for you know, Andor, the newest season, like where they're showing more of like the evils that take place with the Empire, and I feel like that was kind of removed in like that trilogy, right? Like you still had it, obviously, you know, Anakin, you know, kills the children and
the younglings,
yeah, and you know, he has his turn full on turn to evil. So just kind of, I think it's like resonating more with people as they're kind of looking at what's happening and being like, oh, maybe the descent into evil isn't as far-fetched as we thought it was back when it originally came out in 2005. Maybe.
I think there is something to that. There is something to that. That's a good way to wrap this up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So our next topic, I'm super excited about this one. The Slate truck. Do you care about the Slate truck, Sonia?
I do. It was super interesting when it like came out. I was like, "Whoa, what is this?"
Right.
So yeah, excited to hear what you're going to talk about.
So what is Slate? Slate Auto was founded just a couple years ago. Michigan-based electric vehicle startup. Bezos and is an investor. There are other investors, and the company aims to disrupt the EV market by offering a minimalist, affordable electric pickup truck, or SUV. It's whatever you want. They announced the Slate truck, a no-frills, customizable EV. So it's priced at just about $27,000, but after the tax credits, it's only going to be about $20K. It's a two-door, two-seat electric pickup designed for simplicity and customization. Features a 150-mile range, roll-down, roll-up windows, no built-in infotainment system, and it is truly customizable in the sense that you can buy it as a pickup truck. You can get a kit to convert it into a 5-seater SUV. And what's also super exciting is they're open sourcing much of their ecosystem. So this means that there's going to be a ton of third-party accessories. A lot of this will be able to get done for cheap. And then as far as like the manufacturing and economic impact, it's going to be, the car is going to be built in Indiana, expected to create over 2,000 local jobs, revitalizing the local economy. There's so many reasons to be excited about this car. And I mean, I'm pumped. You can get on the wait list now for only $50. It kind of feels like a no-brainer.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think one of the big things of like why it's like resonating with people is like they want a simple small truck. Obviously there's kind of trucks have just grown from how they used to be. I saw actually comments on that saying like, I just bring back the original like Toyotas that used to be made with like no frills and like that'll like take.
But also the smaller Toyota pickup trucks, they don't make that anymore. Like the old Tacoma,
right?
Like the Tacoma now is a big pickup truck. I think there are a lot of people who are like, I just want a smaller pickup truck. I'm really fascinated by this in terms of, I mean, for a number of reasons. One, as a consumer, yeah, but also as a marketer. The way they positioned this was just very clearly laser focused. And it really goes to show that, especially in this highly competitive market of cars, positioning is everything. It's not enough to stand for something. You also have to make a conscious decision to stand against other things too. One cool thing is, I think they were talking about was the CEO of the company was like, it's like a, Mr. Potato Head. Wait, there's a better analogy. And they said like it's the chameleon of trucks. It is truly modular and DIY. And I was seeing like just reading comments about it and stuff. And like somebody said like, I really want this truck. Like I have a Jeep Wrangler and I love it, but it's not that easily customizable. Right, because a Jeep Wrangler, like, you can take off the doors, you can put them back on, but it's not like a 1-hour DIY project. I think it's more complicated than that. But that might be one of the closest things we have to a modular SUV.
Definitely. I mean, the original premise of Tesla's, right, it was going to be that you'd be able to customize it and create it as you wanted. And I think people were really excited about the idea that I would be able to choose the color, choose the accessories and the amenities that were going to be in it and kind of play with the price that way makes sense for people. And I think where more of the, the customer base is headed, just in order to be able to customize the way that they want a car.
Yeah. And so let's dig into the positioning a little bit more. So in that short video they had, and even if you go to their landing page, which I believe is slate.auto, you'll notice that they don't lead with electric vehicle or EV at all. Any mention of charging a car or an EV is more than halfway down the page. So one, I think that is fascinating.
Yeah.
Other thing is, they don't even say anything really about the American-made angle. And I think, especially right now with all the uncertainty around tariffs, one would think they might have leaned into the American made thing. They didn't. I think that's super interesting, right? It's a Michigan-based company. They're going to be building in Indiana, right? And then the last thing I think is interesting is that in the video, they're showing what the car can do or what you can do with the car, right?
Yeah.
They're very much like, we built it, you make it. That's their slogan. But what's interesting is they don't lean on any kind of aspirational lifestyle, right? Usually there's like, someone wearing a cowboy hat, or it's Matthew McConaughey waxing poetic about the open road, right? This is a DIY minimalist car for people who are pragmatic. Love it.
I love that. I mean, another company that kind of like brings to mind is the Subaru, right? Like that, like they're very positioned as to like the people that love being outdoors. You're going to buy like a very practical car that's like stable and like long term, and it's reliable. So it's interesting they went in that direction. And now that I think about it, Rivian is also American made. Tesla, obviously, those are all three like EV companies. So now that you're saying that they didn't, put that forward front and center, it's like, okay, well, they don't want the Rivian like consumer. They don't want the Tesla consumer. I think, they are going after the people that want just like a simple truck. And those people probably wouldn't be drawn in by it being an EV. Though I would have assumed American made.
To be clear, though, also it doesn't preclude them from changing, right, or adding that messaging on later. They might do that. I just really love how laser focused this current positioning is.
No, I mean, and that's what you have to do, right? Like if you're going to come out and you're going to like set yourself against your competitors, what is it about you that is different? Like what are we focusing on? How are you positioning yourself as something that your target consumer is going to instantly understand this car is for you?
Totally. And the last thing I'll say, I think what's also really interesting is in their video announcement, they show that they have a woman CEO. But they show
I didn't even get that.
They only said she was the CEO in the video.
Interesting.
And what I think is interesting is that they did, the messaging wasn't like, wow, look at our woman CEO. Isn't she amazing? It's like she was in it. She was part of the content. She was part of the announcement. And I really like that. There's something about that, like,
it just is what it is.
It just is what it is. It's like they came out the gate with this really strong, clear point of view, yet they somehow managed to kind of depoliticize a lot of things, right? They could have leaned into like environmentalism with the EV. They could have leaned into American made, but they didn't. Could have leaned into having a woman CEO, but didn't. But they showed all these things. Well, they didn't really show the American made aspect. That's more if you learn more about the company. But I think it's super interesting, and I think there is so much to be said for normalizing the change you want to see in the world. I've written a blog post about this on my personal site, amandanat.com. It's important to me because I feel like more people, brands will win if they normalize the change that they want to see.
Definitely. I agree with that. Yeah, it's funny. The main thing that stuck out about her was when they were announcing who was doing the voiceover. That was just one of their employees that, she's like, yes, I like his voice. And I was like, okay, I like that. But it didn't click like, oh, she chose him because she's the CEO and like gets to make those decisions. So I like that aspect that they were able to put that story in there of like how their company is funny, and like there are still seems like it would be like a small enough team that she kind of like knows everybody, and that she's able to make that decision based on just personal preference. It really worked, I think, for what they're trying to convey. So it just immediately made me be like, oh, let me check out this company, aside from just being interested in the truck itself.
Totally. I like that you really got the sense that they are a small startup without having it feel like, oh, look at this cool tech startup. Love it.
Awesome. Well, I think that actually, parries well into my next topic, which is viral user generated content. There was a UPS worker having lunch with his family that went viral on TikTok and then moved over to Twitter. This is a great example of what a lot of companies would love to have, which is user generated content going viral. That's not just about the company. It's, something else that relates to your company. Kind of like we're bringing back Rory McIlroy's Nike ads, where it's like it wasn't about the company, it was about the person and like what they're going through. And I think what this kind of showed was that UPS is known for being worker friendly. They're good paying jobs, they're union employees. So on some level, people are open to this type of narrative where it's like, look, they're being family friendly. It's, something that is beneficial to like the employee. And it made them look really good, right? Which is kind of ironic because just yesterday they announced that there are going to be 20,000 job cuts. 73 facilities are going to be closing just because of, the tariffs, and there's going to be fewer Amazon shipments. So they didn't actually promote this themselves, which I think, they're a little wary of, promoting themselves when all this is happening. But I think what this is doing is it's showing that like, UPS is still a company that like employees really want to work at. There's actually another account that they've set up called UPS Users, where they show user-generated content. This is something that would only work at a company that is known for doing this. So that's the huge thing with like user-generated content. It has to be something that comes across as authentic. It can't be something that's like fake. People can sniff that out real quick. So it worked because it's an unscripted family moment, a real employee in a real situation. There's zero corporate like polish to it, and it hits emotional triggers that people are looking for on these types of videos on TikTok. But it also works because it's employee advocacy, right? Showing what the company is like is a great way to show what it's like to be an employee there. So I'm sure that like, yes, they might be getting rid of some of these jobs, but when they do hire or start trying to hire again, people, will think back on this and be like, oh, it's actually still a good company that I would want to work at. It also shows off the contrast between, the corporate news of like the layoffs, but a more human story that people can relate to and want to look at.
Yeah. And I think there's also just a special kind of relatability aspect to it. And I feel like there's a different word I should be saying than relatability, because that's too broad. It's just, there's something about like everybody knows what UPS is. Everybody knows what a UPS worker looks like. If you're, a random person seeing this video, everything immediately makes sense to you. That's pretty powerful in of itself. Like, it's easy to see who this person is, what their schedule might be like. Like, you already know reflexively as the viewer, like, oh, he probably has a timed lunch. Like, it probably has to be like a strict 30 or 20 minutes of. It's so easy to see the humanity in it, right? It reminds me of, to make this about me, I used to work at Fitbit. I was on the B2B side where we worked with employers who ran corporate wellness programs. Like, they bought Fitbit devices and stuff. But like, one of our most successful case studies that almost never was about Dayton, Ohio's Regional Transit Authority. And the reservation that some leadership had was like, I don't know, brand recognition, people don't know who that is, and I was like, they're bus drivers. Everybody knows what a bus driver looks like. Every city, right? Every state has a public transportation system. Like, come on, people will get this. And it ended up being the most successful case study we had, partly because of the meat of the story, but also just like, there were reporters reaching out to us being like, bus drivers, what? Let's talk. And that ended up being a big surprise. I think a lot of it was just everybody knows what a bus driver is. Everybody knows what a UPS driver is. So,
yeah, definitely. And I think a lesson here for companies to take is you have to give people a reason to create content. User-generated content doesn't just come out of, the ether. It's usually created by, some sort of template or some sort of way to tie it back to the company. You just have to give people the impetus to want to do that, and UPS has kind of done that. They've already established that they're willing to share content on their separate account. So that if it does well enough, it'll get that pull into a broader audience, which most people are generally looking to do. So they've kind of set up that they're positioned to do that for people that are interested in sharing that type of content.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that has me thinking about your employee advocacy. I think a good takeaway for brands here is to think about what are the reservations that employees might normally have about posting about life at your office, and how can you kind of lower those barriers, get rid of those pain points, right? Really, reduce those reservations. Because my other thought, right, is, this person wouldn't have posted his day in the life if he didn't feel comfortable doing so. Right? So clearly there's something in their corporate culture that is working. And so I think it's figure out what might be a barrier for your employees and figure out how you can remove that barrier.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, that video is really sweet. Like at the end, when one of his daughters says, "Can you put me in the car seat?" It's so cute. So cute.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and that's the kind of warm, fuzzy feelings that you want to create and associate with your brand.
Yeah. So our last topic is about bot farms. My little headline here that I typed out was "Social media is a cesspool." What?
No.
Who would have thought? Did not know. Well, we do now.
I mean, those of us on Twitter know.
Anyone who spent time on any kind of social media and waded through the comments, you know what's up. Okay, so bot farms. There was this long Fast Company piece where the author, I think he spent like 6 months learning more about bot farms. I looked up, what do bot farms look like today? Like, what is it? Well, one thing is it's not just software anymore, right? It's not a bunch of just accounts created. It's racks and racks of real phones with separate accounts controlled by one computer. You can look it up. Like you could even just go to Twitter and type in like bot farm, and you can see videos of this, and it's pretty wild. They are quote unquote real accounts in the sense that they were created, right? But they're run by a computer or somebody managing a computer. It makes it really hard to detect what's fake and what's real, right? So I think a lot of these social networks are having a hard time figuring out what's fake. It's really dangerous because these bot farms are really pushing emotional narratives. And it's not just about politics. It's also about things like celebrity drama or hot stocks, like, crypto.
Sure,
like
that reminds me of the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni fight, right? Because that was pretty prominent in the New York Times article where they're talking about, accounts basically publishing stories against Blake Lively, and that's kind of pushing the sentiment in the direction of Baldoni. Bot farms.
Think about any time you see like a viral post on whatever social media platform and you just think, what? There's no way this is common sentiment. This is nuts. And now it's going to have you thinking maybe that wasn't real. Meaning
that's good, right?
Yeah.
That should be the thing. I mean, I think inherently we should be doing that just on anything that's on social media, because social media is not, a news source with like credible information. Sometimes a lot of the stuff that does go viral turns out to not be true. It's just we don't find about that until like way later. Maybe we shouldn't be as hard on Elon is what I'm learning. The bots are not all to blame, for that.
Now we'll say that platforms like Twitter, X, and Meta have purposefully scaled back moderation efforts. So now it's easier than ever to launch these deceptive campaigns. So that's a big problem. But I do want to give an example.
Sure.
So around this time last year, people might recall that Kate Middleton was kind of, what is she?
She disappeared,
Princess of Wales, right? Yeah, she kind of she went like MIA. People were wondering where she was. I think she had said she was going to step back a little bit or take some kind of break. But meantime, but her team was still tweeting some pictures of her, like family pictures that were clearly photoshopped.
That's right.
The hand was awkward. Everyone was like trying to figure out my God.
Or they showed it was like previous, like older photos, right?
Right, like this is an older face from this thing. So like people were really just like, is everything okay? Let's be honest, the royal family machine is not an institution that has been known for their kindness towards women, right? So there was also just the sentiment brewing of like, is she okay? Like what's going on? And then there was the other tweet that she posted that was like, oh, some of us like to experiment with Photoshop. Like, I guess I messed up. So then it was like, wait, so now you're making her take the fall? Like, what is happening here? Right? And then it kind of seemed like her hand was forced to announce her cancer diagnosis. And then everything made sense, which was terrible, obviously. But what I saw then was the narrative very quickly shifted to, oh my gosh, like I can't believe everyone was making fun of a cancer patient. Like, how terrible are you? She doesn't owe you anything. There was a lot of this that I was seeing kind of go viral, and I was thinking, wait a second, I was in this cultural moment. Nobody was making fun of cancer. And so I posted this post on Threads. I'll just read it to you. The straw man arguments y'all are making about Kate Middleton are wild. Nobody was ridiculing Kate nor cancer. People were making fun of the Photoshop fails. Nobody's saying that she should have come out with her diagnosis sooner. They're saying her PR team shouldn't have made those atrocious mistakes and misled the public so poorly. And nobody is saying she doesn't have a right to self-care. Full stop. So I posted that. It was getting pretty good engagement. But what was interesting to me was some comments started rolling in. Faceless accounts that had like 2 followers or even like 100 followers that had no other Threads posts. Their first post was the reply to mine, and they were like saying things in defense of Kate, or even just saying like, wow, you're so wrong, you couldn't be more wrong about this, I love Kate Middleton, or they were just saying things that I was like, this looks weird to me. And so I would look at their profiles, and each of these ones that were kind of critical towards me / defending Kate were faceless profiles, didn't have a lot of followers, and their reply to me was their only tweet or their only post. And a couple of them I replied to and said like, oh, a bot, how interesting. Or so that I thought like that actually kind of stuck with me, because I thought that was the only time that I really felt like bot activity. And I was like, that's really weird. And a time that I felt like the shifted narrative of, oh my gosh, everyone making fun of cancer. I was like, no one was making fun of cancer. That was not the sentiment at all. It was just everyone was genuinely wondering what happened to her.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember when that happened, but yeah, for me, it more clearly was the whole Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni drama, because it started on like her side and then it shifted over to his side, and then the New York Times article came out, so it shifted over to her side again, and then it kind of has been trying to go back. I find it so interesting because, you know, social media and like how, you know, news gets out and how it functions. I find it super interesting. So now I'm just like very like cognizant of like trying to like move the sentiment. And I am seeing that a lot more of it is turning against women. It is really interesting to see how the narrative kind of changes, because you start seeing all these you know, bots kind of like pile on. Like there is to some extent like a human who, you know, puts an opinion out there, and then that's the one that starts getting buoyed. So it's not all just like bot farming, and it does make me like curious about like how it all just kind of like works. But it is kind of scary to think about like that's just harmless celebrity gossip and like, you know, whatever. But like if that's happening with celebrity gossip, then it has to be happening like politically, right? I mean, we saw that recently with like the China TikTok and tariff situation, right? Where that kind of started like really coming out.
TikTok has their own issues with this, right? Like before, I believe you could see how many people or like how many posts there were about a given hashtag or topic, but now you can't see it anymore, in large part because there was evidence that showed that posts that were like favorable about China or the CCP were clearly getting prioritized in the algorithm because of the way the metrics were skewing. So they just removed it. So like that's definitely sketchy. But what does it mean for marketers?
What indeed?
What does it mean, guys? Let's talk about the marketers, and then we'll talk about personally, right? So for marketers, I think the big thing here is really we have to figure out how to find better metrics for the influencers or creators that we work with, right? Because it's not just about follower count anymore. I mean, it hasn't been about follower count in a long time, but it's the first thing you notice, right? Still reflexively, it's the first thing you see. Follower counts, likes, and even comments. We know that these can all be gamed now. So things that marketers really need to try to pay attention to are authenticity signals. So look for things like audience overlap, like maybe like truly look to see if a potential influencer or creator you want to work with has some overlap in their audience with yours. Look at engagement quality, like what types of comments are they getting on their pages, right? And then if you can, or well, you should, try to understand off-platform behavior. Is their email list growing, right? How many referrals does this person drive? Things that actually point to business needle moving metrics. I think that's a big thing.
I think that's a thing that I've been realizing more and more. Your email list is like the key to so many things because you're getting that opt-in, right? And so I've been on this boat for a while where it's like, not only do you have to like grow your email list, but you have to treat your email list like they're precious, right? Do not spam them. Do not treat them poorly. Because once they're gone, you're going to have to like work really hard to get that trust back.
Absolutely. And that's like the other thing I had in my notes that I wanted to say is, nowadays, like, your reputation matters more than ever. Like, trust is kind of the new growth tactic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's important to note for everyone that that virality does not equal credibility. Right? We know officially that high engagement no longer guarantees real interests. You always have to vet who is engaging because the algorithm doesn't care what's true, right? It only cares what's sticky. So everyone, beware.
Yeah. I think that's a good lesson, overall to take though, right? Where it's like, make sure that you have sources that you trust to get your information from. But then also that what you're putting out there is probably what you're going to get back, right? Like, you're still kind of in charge of like your algorithm. The things that you click on, the things that you like and engage with are the things that are going to come back to you. So try to build out that audience as much as possible. And I think really thinking back on like first principles of like social media marketing, right? It's like the people that you're engaging with, how are you engaging with them? Are you just trying to sell to them, or are you kind of like putting yourself in a way that like is authentic and is kind of building that trust from the get-go?
And for consumers, trust but verify.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're going to see that more and more where companies are trying to storytell their narrative and their messaging, like we saw with, our earlier example with Slate. I think the way that they kind of put themselves out there gave you a little context of like how they see themselves, the type of audience that they want, the type of consumers that they want. And if you're able to relate to that, you're going to like sign up. So just really, think on the type of audience that you want to build and then, go after those people. It's not enough to try to like be everything for everyone. That's not going to really work anymore. You have to really narrow in on your audience in order to make sure that you're attracting the right type of consumer and audience.
Yeah. All right, let's take us out with some key takeaways.
Yeah, definitely. So millennial nostalgia. Obviously that's kind of hard for newer companies, but maybe, you put a twist on that where it's like, is there something that like our product or service can recall for people in order to kind of associate your company with that? I think actually Slate did that really well. One of the commercials actually that it reminded me of was what is it, dollarshaveclub.com, right? That ad that went viral back in the day, where it's just like the CEO talking about the product and like being like really authentic about it, and then hitting those temporal landmarks like anniversaries, dates. Like, is there anything that like you can associate with like your company, right? Like every year you're gonna have like your anniversary or like your birthday. Like, are there things that you can tie back to like get people excited? Obviously there are people that do like yearly sales, discounts, stuff like that. So those are obviously ideas that have been working, but are there like different things that like you can tie back to get people interested in your product at the time?
Yeah. And then we also have Slate Truck Masterclass in Positioning. I mean, truly, marketers, we need to nail our positioning, stand for something and stand against other things, and really, really laser focus your messaging. For viral user generated content, for me, the big takeaway is figure out how you can empower the people closest to you in your brand and how you can remove barriers to entry so that they can post on your behalf or create content around their connection to your brand.
Yeah, I think for me the takeaway was that it's more relevant to do something associated with your brand, and not necessarily about your brand, right? Like this wasn't a commercial, or sorry, a video about how, you know, UPS delivers on time. No, it was a video about a family having lunch with, you know, the worker who works for UPS, and that, you know, kind of ties into what we did with Rory McIlroy and that episode. It's like you have to give people a reason to create content around what you're doing. That's not just like, here's the latest thing that I bought from this company or whatever.
Yeah. And then finally, social media is a cesspool. That's it. It's a terrible place to be. It's dumpster fire. No, but it's your reputation matters. Take care of it. And remember that virality does not equal credibility.
Yeah. And then I think for me, the takeaway is that go back to like first principles of social media, which is like you're engaging with your audience as much as you're trying to get them to engage with you. I think a lot of people kind of like lose sight of that by just, you know, using it as a channel to announce something. That's not really going to get you any play right now, right? You want to like show that you're an actual brand that has an actual person like working on the account, and like that you care about like your customers. So, you know, kind of tie this back into the user generated content, right? Where it's like, are you giving people a reason to follow your account?
All right. Thank you, friends.
Awesome.
This has been the Meme Team Podcast. Join us next week because we are doing this every week. And if you are listening and you want to join the show, reach out to us.
Yeah, tell us about the viral moment that you want to talk about, what the summary is, and what marketing lessons are there for people to learn about.
Yeah, and we don't have dedicated contact info yet, so you know what? Scrappy people will figure out how to reach us.
No, you could DM either one of us on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm at Sonia Bashez.
And I'm at Amanda Nat. And then check out our website. It is memeteampodcast.com. Everything's there.
Yes. Awesome. Bye.